My mother, Eleanor Sterling, was dying. She was lying in a private ICU in Manhattan, her life being billed by the second. I urgently needed to access the family trust fund, so I quickly called my wife, Victoria Chun. She was a top wealth management expert, a star from Wall Street, and the sole trustee of our family's fund. Victoria, the hospital is calling for payment. I need to draw $50 million from the trust. Her voice on the other end of the line was as cold as steel. That's not possible, Ethan. According to the terms of the trust, your mother's medical care is not a contractually stipulated priority expense. She's my mother. The rules are the rules. 30 minutes later, I received an anonymous email. The attachment was a detailed ledger of the trust's outflows. $2 million, wired annually to a man named Julian Vance. The email also contained a photo. It was a 3-year-old girl. Her eyes, her smile, they were a perfect copy of Victoria's. I understood. It wasn't that Victoria couldn't make the withdrawal. It was that she was using my mother's life-saving funds to support her lover and their secret daughter. The sharp alarm of the ICU monitor pierced my eardrums. I watched, helpless, as my mother's EKG flatlined. Tears of blood streamed down my face. Victoria, you murdered my mother with financial rules. I will use those same rules to bury you alive. My mother's funeral was scheduled for 3 days later. The chill from the funeral home's air conditioning couldn't extinguish the fire raging in my bones. The funeral director handed me the bill. Mr. Sterling, the total comes to $880,000. I nodded and took out my phone to contact the trust bank. The Sterling family's multi-billion-dollar fortune was held in an offshore trust established by Victoria. When the call connected, the bank's account manager was strictly professional. I apologized, Mr. Sterling. As per the trust agreement, any large withdrawals must be personally authorized by the trustee, Ms. Chun. My mother has passed away. This is for her funeral expenses. Mr. Sterling, we understand your situation, but Ms. Chun gave specific instructions to implement risk controls against what she termed your irrational spending. Risk controls? My mother was dead, and she was talking to me about risk controls? I hung up, a burning pain searing my chest. I choked back a mouthful of blood. The day of the funeral, I stood in the center of the chapel, dressed in a black suit. My mother's portrait watched over me with a sad, gentle gaze. Victoria arrived late. She wasn't alone. She was leaning on Julian Vance's arm, her pregnancy obvious, holding the hand of that same 3-year-old girl. The child with Victoria's eyes. The chapel fell silent. I walked toward Victoria, my voice like ice. What are they doing here? She flicked a piece of lint from her dress, a dismissive smile on her face. Ethan, don't make a scene. It's an honor for Eleanor that Julian and Abby are here to say goodbye. Victoria, you're shameless. You used my mom's money to support this boy toy and your illegitimate daughter. You. Julian immediately covered the little girl's ears, looking at me with feigned sadness. Ethan, man, don't scare the kid. Victoria. Victoria patted his back reassuringly before turning to me. Ethan, remember where you are? Don't act like a lunatic. Suppressing my rage, I pointed to the funeral director. The funeral costs. They need your authorization. Victoria laughed coldly. I refuse. What did you say? The core principle of a trust is asset appreciation. The dead are a depreciating asset. No matter how much you invest, the ROI is zero. She looked down, tenderly stroking her pregnant belly. I, on the other hand, have to be responsible for the next generation. Now, that is a high-quality asset. All the blood in my body rushed to my head. You're a monster, Victoria. I raised my hand to strike her, but Julian intercepted, grabbing my arm in a vice grip. Ethan, are you trying to get yourself committed? Victoria shoved me back hard. Julian pulled her into a protective embrace. Tori, don't say that. You'll hurt his feelings. He just doesn't understand finance. Victoria scoffed. And ignorance has a price. There are no tears in the world of finance. The funeral ended in a blur. I was holding my mother's cold, heavy urn. Victoria was waiting for me at the exit, holding out a document. A voluntary relinquishment of inheritance. Sign it. Esther de here. Victoria, do you have to be this cruel? Julian suddenly covered his mouth in a mock gasp, the keys to a brand-new Rolls-Royce Phantom dangling from his fingers, catching the light. Bro, Victoria bought this for me. used the quarterly dividends from the trust. He leaned in conspiratorially. She said I needed something to compensate for the emotional distress of Eleanor's passing. My mother's death was his excuse to get a new luxury car. Victoria slapped the document right on top of my mother's urn. Ethan, you're too emotionally volatile. You're not fit to manage assets. Sign it, she hissed, or I'll make sure your mother's ashes end up on the street with you. I clutched the urn, my nails digging into the wood. She was using the most professional language to commit the most depraved acts. The law, morality, they meant nothing to her. To kill a wolf from Wall Street, you have to play by her rules. I had to sell my collection of luxury watches just to bury my mother. Back at our Greenwich estate, I stormed into the study. The desk was piled high with trust documents. A double-layer Cayman Island structure, irrevocable power of attorney, sole trustee. I once thought these were my family's shields. They were my cage. 4 or 5 years of marriage, Victoria had always said, Ethan, leave the professional stuff to me. You just enjoy life. I enjoyed life, and she took everything. I had to find a loophole. The next day, I went to the top floor of the Sterling Corporation headquarters. I pushed open the door to the CEO's office. The overwhelming scent of gardenia perfume, Victoria's scent, hit me. The office was completely transformed. My mother's mahogany furniture, her collection of modern art, all gone, replaced by a cold, minimalist black and white aesthetic. A cleaning crew was hauling out the last of the trash. On top of a dumpster, I saw a familiar picture frame. It was a photo of my parents and me, a family portrait. I lunged for it, pulling it from a pile of shattered glass, cutting my fingertips. What are you doing here? Victoria emerged from the office, holding a cup of coffee. This was my mother's office. Victoria took a sip. To be precise, it's the CEO's office. And I'm the current CEO. She gestured toward the dumpster. Inefficient nostalgia is a liability in corporate management. She walked over, snatched the family photo from my hands, tore it in two, and tossed it back onto the pile. These are all non-performing assets. They need to be disposed of. My heart felt like it was being crushed in a vice. She didn't just want the money. She wanted to erase every trace of my mother's existence. Victoria, you ungrateful snake, if it wasn't for my mom. Shut up. Victoria's composure finally cracked, her eyes flashing with contempt. I used my expertise to grow the Sterling family assets tenfold. What I've taken is nothing more than my performance bonus. She slid another document across the desk. A proposal to optimize your inheritance tax liability. I opened it. It was a plan to transfer the core equity of the Sterling Corporation to an offshore shell company under her name. I'm not signing this. Victoria didn't get angry. She pulled an ultrasound photo from her pocket. Looking at the blurry image, a flicker of warmth touched her lips. I'm pregnant again. It's a boy this time. She looked up at me, her eyes freezing over again. You idiot. Do you have any idea how much this plan will save in taxes? 9 figures. My children deserve the best possible future. She framed her theft as professional acumen. She defined my resistance as incompetence. You make me sick, Victoria. Sick. Victoria smiled. The market only cares about results. Her heels clicked on the floor as she cornered me. Sign it. I grabbed the document and threw it in her face. Get out. The papers scattered across the floor. Victoria calmly smoothed her long, dark hair. You'll regret this, Ethan. Emotional decisions always carry the highest cost. She turned and pressed the intercom on her desk. Security, please escort Mr. Sterling from the premises. And while you're at it, deactivate his key card. I was thrown out of Sterling Corporation. Standing on the sidewalk beneath the skyscraper my mother had built, I felt like a joke. I needed a lawyer. But after 3 days and hundreds of calls to every major law firm in the city, no one would take my case. Victoria had already spread the word that I was mentally unstable from grief. She was engineering my social death. I tried to hail an Uber to get to the next firm on my list. The driver accepted the ride, then immediately canceled. A text message from my bank popped up, frowny face alert. Your credit card has been suspended due to high-risk activity. Please contact the issuing bank for details. Every card in my wallet was a supplementary card issued from her primary account. She had cut off every one of my lifelines. I was broke. I couldn't even afford a ride or a consultation fee. My phone buzzed. It was an e-Veet from Victoria. a new life celebration gala to celebrate Victoria Chun and Julian Vance's second child. The location, our mansion in Greenwich. I remembered when we were renovating it. Victoria had said, "This is where our future begins." Now, it was the venue for her new life party. At the bottom of the invitation, in fine print, "This event is graciously sponsored by the Sterling Family Trust Fund." She was using my family's money, in my home, to celebrate her child with another man. Just then, a courier approached me. "Mr. Sterling, a package for you." I opened the box. Inside was an expensive, custom-made Italian sexy butler costume. There was also a check for $100,000. A card, in Julian's handwriting, read, "Ethan, Tori told me you were a little short on cash. A man needs to have some walking around money. This outfit was a bit tight on me, but maybe it'll fit you. A man's got to treat himself, right?" It wasn't charity. It was torture. I doubled over, gagging, and ripped the check into tiny pieces. I couldn't just wait to die. I went back to my mother's personal study at her townhouse, the one place Victoria hadn't yet contaminated. I had to find something of value to sell, even if it was my mother's heirlooms. I pulled open drawers, rummaging through her things, despair washing over me. As I picked up an old fountain pen to put in the to-sell box, I felt something shift inside it. I unscrewed the barrel. A micro USB drive fell out. My hands trembling, I plugged it into a laptop. The password was my mother's birthday. The screen lit up. My mother's tired face appeared. "Ethan, by the time you see this, I'm probably gone. I let a wolf in the door, son. I was wrong. Victoria's ambition is far greater than I ever imagined. Conventional legal channels won't work against her. You need a more vicious wolf to hunt her down. Go to Wall Street. Find someone named Sabrina King. Her nickname is Kings. She was once my greatest rival, and she's Victoria's mortal enemy. She's known as the Lioness of Wall Street, famous for getting results by any means necessary. But she owes me a favor. Tell her Eleanor Sterling sent you to collect on a debt." The video ended. I wiped the tears from my eyes. This was no longer my fight alone. This was me and my mother fighting side by side. I dialed the international number. "Hello, Ms. King. My name is Ethan Sterling. My mother, Eleanor Sterling, told me to find you. It's about Victoria Chun." There was a pause on the other end, followed by a low, knowing chuckle. "Victoria Chun? That self-righteous, gold-digging fraud. She's stolen my mother's entire fortune, billions, through a complex offshore trust." "Offshore trust? Interesting. I need your help. But right now, I can't afford your fees." "The money's not important," Sabrina King cut in. "The chance to utterly ruin Victoria Chun. That's the best compensation I could ask for. Send me everything you have. There's nothing I enjoy more than dismantling an elaborate scam." "Mr. Sterling, congratulations. You've just found an ally who's willing to go to hell and back with you." 04 Sabrina King's King and her team were ruthlessly efficient. 24 hours later, she sent me her initial analysis. "Your situation is worse than I thought. Victoria's trust structure is a perfect closed loop. By the time you could win a case in the Cayman Islands, the money would be long gone." My heart sank. "But," Sabrina said, a smirk in her voice, "she got greedy. For absolute control. She made herself the sole trustee and protector of the trust. It means if something happens to her, the entire structure collapses. We need seed money to start," Sabrina said, pulling up a file. "I found something. You two have a joint spousal emergency fund. Swiss bank account. $20 million. $20 million. I remembered it. It requires two-factor authentication from both of you," Sabrina reminded me. "I know. I knew all of Victoria's passwords. She was arrogant. All her codes were based on a few key dates. Our wedding anniversary, her birthday, and Julian Vance's birthday." I took a deep breath and logged into the Swiss bank's portal. I entered the account number and my authentication code. The system prompted, "Please enter trustee's dynamic authentication code. Wedding anniversary. Access denied. Julian's birthday. Access denied." My heart hammered against my ribs. Wait, the secret daughter, Abby. I calculated her likely birthday and typed it in. Authentication successful. I immediately entered the transfer amount, 20,000,000. My pulse thundering. I clicked confirm. The screen flashed. Transaction processing. I did it. I had the ammunition to fight back. A 3-minute countdown appeared on the screen. 60 seconds. 30 seconds. My phone suddenly erupted with notifications. It wasn't a transfer confirmation. It was a fraud alert from the bank. Warning, your account has triggered a high-risk transaction alert and has been permanently frozen. Frozen? How? I passed the authentication. My phone rang again. It was Victoria. I answered. Good evening, darling, she cooed, her voice dripping with the pleasure of a cat toying with a mouse. You did this. I have to admit, you're a little smarter than I gave you credit for. Guessing Abby's birthday was a nice touch. But, Ethan, you're just so naive. In a world of high-stakes finance, any loophole you can see is a trap. My head was spinning. What are you talking about? That account. I left it there on purpose. It was a honeypot designed to test your greed and stupidity. I set up a reverse trigger alert. Any large transfer attempt that bypasses my direct approval automatically triggers the highest level security protocol, a permanent account freeze. Only I can unlock it now. You idiot. The world tilted on its axis. Not only had I failed to get the money, but I had also sealed off my last escape route. Victoria let out a delicate laugh. Thank you, Ethan. You've saved me the trouble of legally dividing that particular marital asset. Oh, and by the way, about half an hour ago, in my capacity as CEO of Sterling Corp., I initiated a forced liquidation of all the company's key stock holdings. The cash has been moved. As of right now, the Sterling Corporation has 0 liquid assets. 05, good luck, my dear ex-husband. She hung up. I collapsed to the floor. I had lost everything. The $20 million emergency fund was frozen, and the company had been bled dry. Victoria had used one simple trap to sever my last lifeline. I was completely, utterly broke. The sole heir to a billion-dollar empire couldn't even afford to live to see tomorrow. I looked at the video conference screen, where Sabrina had been listening silently. My voice trembled. Ms. King, I have no money. I know. Sabrina lit a slim cigarette. Not just for your fees. I don't have a single dollar for the startup costs. I closed my eyes, waiting for her to end the call. Instead, she blew out a plume of smoke. Mr. Sterling, I think you've misunderstood something. The little financial games Victoria played with you, that's amateur hour. On Wall Street, taking down an enemy is a lot more interesting than earning a few million in consulting fees. Her crimson-painted nail tapped ash from her cigarette. I'll take this on contingency. I want 30% of all recovered assets. I almost broke down in tears. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Now, the real work begins. 06 Sabrina's team began a deep dive analysis of the offshore trust. For the next few days, I drowned myself in financial documents. I had to learn to speak Victoria's language to find her weakness. A week later, Sabrina called. Ethan, good news. You found something? Victoria is smart, but she has one fatal flaw. What is it? Greed. She's pathologically greedy. Sabrina displayed the trust's complex structure on the screen. She designed a double offshore structure with illegal nominee shareholders. It's incredibly aggressive and extremely high risk. To cut you out completely, she bypassed the standard oversight mechanism of a trust protector. That's a major violation of trust law. But that's not the kill shot. Sabrina magnified a section of the financial records. She didn't just want her family's billions. She wanted to avoid paying a single cent in taxes. To achieve maximum tax avoidance, she falsified enormous amounts of trade invoices to justify the capital transfers. Simply put, she was laundering money. I sucked in a sharp breath. Ethan, do you know what this means? Victoria's perfect trust might be untouchable in the Cayman Islands. But she forgot that there's something far more terrifying than a local shark. The terrifying entity Sabrina was referring to was the Internal Revenue Service. Victoria has a U.S. green card, and her trust holds substantial U.S. dollar assets. She is legally required to report everything to the IRS. But she didn't. Not only did she fail to report, she actively used fraudulent records to evade taxes and launder money. I understood immediately. Challenging the trust validity in a foreign court could take a decade. But in the United States, tax evasion is a felony. Exactly, Sabrina said with a snap of her fingers. The investigative authority of the IRS Criminal Investigation Division supersedes any trust confidentiality clause. We're going to borrow their sword to kill our enemy. And that sword is the IRS. A chill ran down my spine. This wasn't a business dispute anymore. This was a criminal case. Ethan, we're going to prepare a very special gift for the IRS. For the next month, Sabrina's team and I worked around the clock. We combed through 5 years of Sterling Corporation's overseas accounts. Victoria had been clever, but money always leaves a trail. As I worked day and night gathering evidence, Victoria sensed something was wrong. She called me, her voice oozing with condescending mockery. Ethan, I hear you've been asking questions about me. Still haven't given up? Are you still trying to use your pathetic legal knowledge to challenge the perfect firewall I built? I held the phone calmly, flipping through a trust document in my hand. Victoria, I have found a few interesting things. I think you'll be surprised. There was a brief silence, followed by a cold laugh. Ethan, you can't even afford to eat. Don't starve to death in some back alley where no one can find your body. I listened to her threats, my gaze unwavering. Your biggest weakness, Victoria, is your arrogance. Just you wait. I hung up before she could reply and went back to the evidence. This isn't enough, Sabrina said. We need more visceral proof. Something that shows motive and her capacity to spend these illicit funds. I started digging through Victoria and Julian's social media. Julian was an arrogant show-off. His Instagram feed was a monument to luxury goods, super yachts, and private jets. A little something from Tori to me. A vineyard in Bordeaux. Abby's 3rd birthday present. Our own private island in the Bahamas. New Hermes Himalayan Birkin arrived today. Thanks, babe. Every photo was paid for with my mother's blood, sweat, and tears. Perfect. Sabrina saved screenshots of everything. This is our Exhibit A. We compiled all the data into a thick whistleblower report and sent it anonymously to the IRS Criminal Investigation Division. Now, we wait, Sabrina said. That's it. We just wait. Of course not. We've lit the fuse. Now we add some fuel to the fire. Sabrina looked at the Instagram photos. Ethan, do you know what kind of story the public loves most? What? The gold digger who uses her husband's money to keep her boy toy. I created a burner account on Twitter. I packaged Julian's flaunting screenshots with the bank records showing Victoria's refusal to pay for my mother's ICU care and sent them to every major gossip and financial news outlet. The headline was already written in my head. The billion-dollar betrayal. Wall Street Wonder Woman steals husband's fortune, uses dying mother-in-law's money to fund lover's lavish lifestyle. Less than an hour after it went out, the story exploded. In the digital age, public interest in complex financial scams paled in comparison to a juicy high society scandal. Damn, this woman is pure evil. A stone-cold predator. Married the guy just to gut his entire family. That loser's shoes probably cost more than I make in a decade. Poor Ethan Sterling. Mom's dead, money's gone, wife's a monster. For the first time, Victoria's name wasn't in the business section. It was the headline on page 6. I watched the comments roll in, feeling eerily calm. Victoria, you cared so much about your reputation as a powerful, elite woman. I'm going to tear it down with my own 2 hands. 07. The scandal went viral. Victoria's team immediately went into damage control. They paid to have posts taken down, sent out cease and desist letters, and threatened to sue me for defamation. She even sat for an exclusive interview, discussing the emotional risks of legacy family heirs in corporate succession. My husband has recently suffered the tragic loss of his mother and is emotionally unstable, she said, feigning concern. He has some misunderstandings about modern financial instruments. As his wife, it is my duty to protect him from making irrational decisions based on his emotions. She was still so sanctimonious. She painted my quest for justice as a grief-stricken tantrum. And Julian, far from laying low, doubled down. He hosted multiple Instagram live sessions, weeping crocodile tears. Tori and I have a true connection. We fell in love in college. Ethan never knew how to appreciate her. He even posted a carefully photoshopped picture of himself with my mother, Eleanor, where they appeared to be sharing a warm moment. Eleanor always adored me. She approved of my relationship with Tori from the very beginning. He was trying to use my dead mother to launder his reputation. I turned off my phone. None of it mattered anymore. Sabrina informed me that the IRS had secretly opened a formal investigation. What's Victoria's next move? I asked Sabrina. She's preparing for next week's Global Wealth Management Summit in Davos. She's the keynote speaker. I laughed. What's her topic? The role of offshore trusts in risk mitigation for generational wealth transfer. The irony was staggering. She was using my family's tragedy as her personal success story. This will be the pinnacle of her career, Sabrina said. Global live stream, the whole world watching. Then we'll send her to hell from the highest peak. The night before the summit, I hacked into the security system of our Greenwich mansion. It was our marital home, and I'd had a backdoor installed in the system years ago. A massive party was underway in the living room. Victoria, in a stunning white backless gown, was holding court like a queen. Julian had his arm around her as they cut a massive 3-tiered cake. Tori, I'm so happy, Julian said, beaming. After the summit next week, we can finally go relax on our island. Of course, my love, Victoria said, kissing his lips. That Ethan is still running around trying to sue us. It's so annoying. He's a clown, Victoria said, taking a sip of champagne. Does he really think a divorce settlement will get him anything? The assets are in the trust. He can't touch a penny. Once the summit is over, I'll complete the final asset transfer. Then, the Sterling Corporation will be completely mine. Julian stroked her belly. Ours. And our 2 children's. Victoria laughed. Yes, ours. She raised her glass. Tonight we celebrate not just the future, but a final goodbye to the inefficient, outdated methods of the past. On the monitor, she was radiant, triumphant. She had no idea the Reaper's scythe was already at her neck. My phone rang. It was Sabrina. Ethan, everything is in place. The IRS agents and Interpol have arrived at the summit. I looked at Victoria on the screen. Enjoy your last party. Tomorrow, in front of the entire world, I will strip you of everything. 08. The Global Wealth Management Summit. The hall was packed. The event was being live-streamed worldwide. I sat in front of my laptop, watching. The live chat was filled with praise for Victoria from her peers. Victoria Chun is the authority in trust law. Can't wait for her insights. After a glowing introduction, Victoria walked on stage to thunderous applause. She wore an expensive custom gown that artfully concealed her pregnancy, exuding an aura of absolute power. Good afternoon, everyone. Today, I want to discuss a core issue: how to utilize offshore trusts to achieve true risk mitigation and ensure the perpetual transfer of family wealth. She clicked to her first slide. It was a case study of the Sterling Corporation. She was parading my family's stolen wealth as her trophy. In traditional wealth management models, we often see family fortunes decimated by the irrational decisions of heirs, she began. She talked on, describing my mother's business acumen as outdated and my fight for justice as emotional. And she, of course, was the brilliant professional who had saved the day. Bile rose in my throat. Victoria, you climbed high on my mother's corpse. Her speech ended, and the floor was open for questions. From the back of the auditorium, a woman stood up. It was Sabrina King. She walked directly toward the stage. Victoria froze for a second when she saw her. Sabrina, what are you doing here? Sabrina reached the stage and smiled. I'm not here to ask a question. I'm here to expose you. She turned to face the audience, her voice booming through the hall. Ladies and gentlemen, this woman, Victoria Chun, is not a wealth management expert. She is a fraud, a thief, and a predator who destroyed a family to enrich herself. The entire room erupted in gasps. The live stream chat exploded. WTF is happening? Is this part of the show? Victoria panicked. Sabrina, you're insane. I'll sue you for slander. Security, get her out of here. Sabrina pulled a thick file from her briefcase and threw it onto the lectern. This is the proof that you falsified trade record for the Sterling Corporation to evade taxes and launder money. This is the proof that you violated the terms of the trust, illegally removed the beneficiary, your own husband, and designated your illegitimate daughter to receive the funds. Your so-called risk mitigation was mitigating your mother-in-law's access to life-saving medical care and mitigating your husband's access to his legal inheritance. The color drained from Victoria's face. You. This is libel, it's all lies. Just then, the massive screen behind her went black. A moment later, it flickered to life with the security footage from the party the night before. Victoria's voice, crisp and clear, filled the auditorium. The Sterling Corporation will be completely mine. The hall was dead silent. Then, my voice came over the sound system. Victoria, your future is in hell. And I, Ethan Sterling, am sending you there personally. The main doors of the auditorium burst open. A dozen uniformed Interpol officers and IRS criminal investigation agents stormed in. They marched straight to the stage. Ms. Victoria Chun. The lead agent flashed his credentials. We have reason to believe you are involved in international financial fraud, felony tax evasion, and money laundering. You are under arrest. Two officers moved in, grabbing Victoria by each arm. No, you can't arrest me. I'm Click. The cold, hard steel of handcuffs snapped shut around the wrist she used to sign away my family's fortune. The global live stream captured every single moment. I closed my laptop. I could still hear the clean, final sound of that click. Game over, Victoria. The video of Victoria's arrest at the summit went global. Hashtag Trust Fund Takedown. Hashtag Wall Street Wolf arrested. Hashtag live stream to prison. 8 of the top 10 trending topics were about her. Her carefully crafted image of an elite professional was shattered overnight. She became a pariah. Sabrina called me. Well done, Ethan. What about the trust? I asked. Frozen. A joint task force of international financial regulators has locked it down. She can't move a dime. And Julian, he's not getting away. As a recipient of stolen funds and an accomplice to money laundering, the IRS is looking for him, too. 3 days later, I saw Victoria through the glass of a detention center visiting room. She was in a prison jumpsuit, her hair a mess, her lips pale. She looked at me, her eyes first filled with confusion, then with a desperate, wild rage. Ethan, you bastard! You ruined me, she shrieked into the phone. I ruined you. I laughed coldly. No, Victoria. You were just too stupid and too greedy. You forgot the oldest rule in the book. There are no perfect crimes. Her eyes widened in horror. It was the IRS. You reported me for tax evasion. Congratulations. You finally figured it out. She understood at last. She hadn't been defeated by a flaw in her trust structure. She had been defeated by her own greed. She tried to operate outside the law, and the law had crushed her. Ethan, you animal. I'll kill you, she screamed, hysterical. Save your breath. You should be thinking about how you're going to survive the next 30 years in federal prison. I hung up the phone and walked away. Meanwhile, life had become very difficult for Julian Vance. The mansion was seized, the sport cars were impounded. He was officially named a person of interest in the criminal investigation. My lawyer. I need my lawyer. What do I do? Julian sobbed in his attorney's office. Mr. Vance, the situation is not good. You are the named recipient of a massive amount of illicitly obtained funds. That was all Victoria. She gave it to me. I didn't know anything. The lawyer shook his head. Your only viable option is to cut a deal. Testify against Ms. Chun. Become a cooperating witness. Blame everything on her. Julian stopped crying. What about my kids? Abby is a beneficiary of the trust. The trust has been declared an illegal instrument. All beneficiary claims are void. The money will be seized by the government. What? Julian screamed. No, that's my money. It's my daughter's money. Mr. Vance, it's about saving yourself now. Julian fell silent. A few seconds later, he looked up, his eyes hard. Fine. I'll testify. I know everything Victoria did. She forced me into it. I'm a victim here too. Their true love didn't stand a chance against the threat of prison. 3 months later, the trial began. I sat in the gallery. In the defendant's box were Victoria Chun and Julian Vance. The once loving couple were now like rabid dogs tearing each other apart. Your Honor, I'm innocent. Julian wailed. Victoria Chun manipulated me. I was just a father trying to do right by my child. Victoria trembled with rage. Julian, you useless parasite. The vineyard, the yacht, the cars. You begged me for every single one of them. You're the one who told me to forge art appraisals to help you wash money into your secret Swiss account. You liar, Julian screamed back. You wouldn't even pay for your dying mother-in-law's hospital bills. You are a sick bitch. On the stand, they exposed every dirty secret, every sordid detail. I watched their mutual destruction without feeling a thing. The verdict came down. Defendant Victoria Chun, having been found guilty on all counts of international financial fraud, felony tax evasion, and money laundering, is hereby sentenced to 30 years in federal prison. All personal assets are to be forfeited, and she is permanently barred from the financial industry. Defendant Julian Vance, having been found guilty of money laundering and receiving stolen property, is hereby sentenced to 10 years in federal prison. All illicit funds and assets in his or his daughter's name are to be seized. The gavel fell. Victoria collapsed in her chair. Julian screamed, "I'm innocent," as the bailiffs dragged him away. It was over. With the help of Sabrina's team, I regained control of the Sterling Corporation's core assets. 6 months later, I stood in the CEO's office, looking out over the city lights. This was once my mother's office, then Victoria's stolen throne. Now it was mine again. Sabrina walked in, holding 2 glasses of champagne. "Congratulations, Mr. Sterling." I took a glass and clinked it against hers. "Thank you, Sabrina. You're tougher than I thought. Eleanor would be proud of the man you've become." I smiled. In half a year, I had gone from a clueless heir to a CEO who could go toe-to-toe with the sharks of Wall Street. Victoria thought she had destroyed me. Instead, she had forged me in fire. "Sabrina, I'm formally offering you the position of chief counsel for the Sterling family." Sabrina raised an eyebrow, a rare, genuine smile playing on her lips. "My rates are very expensive." "You're worth it." We toasted again. Outside, the city glittered. The pain and tears of the past had become my armor. My new life was just beginning.